in which our lovers begin to learn the consequences of their actions. Chapter 18. Footsteps were heard, and a man's voice, then a woman's voice, and laughter, and the expected guests came in, Sappho Stoltz and a young man radiant with a superabundance of health, the so-called Vaska. It was evident that he prospered in a diet of rare beef, truffles, and burgundy. Vaska bowed to the ladies and glanced at them, but only for a second. He came into the drawing-room after Sappho, and followed her across the room as if tied to her, not taking his shining eyes off her, as if he wanted to eat her up. Sappho Stoltz was a dark-eyed blonde. She walked with brisk little steps in her high-heeled shoes and gave the ladies a firm, mannish handshake. Anna had not met this new celebrity before, and was struck by her beauty, by how extremely far her costume went, and by the boldness of her manners. On her head, hair of a delicately golden color, her own and other women's, was done up into such an edifice of a coiffure that her head equaled in size her shapely, well-rounded, and much exposed bust. Her forward movement was so impetuous that at every step the forms of her knees and thighs were outlined under her dress, and the question involuntarily arose as to where, at the back of this built-up, heaving mountain, her real, small, and shapely body actually ended, so bare above and so concealed behind and below. Betsy hastened to introduce her to Anna. "Can you imagine? We nearly ran over 2 soldiers," she began telling them at once, winking, smiling, and thrusting her train back in place, having first swept it too far to one side. "I was driving with Vaska. Ah, yes, you're not acquainted." And, giving the family name, she introduced the young man, and blushing, laughing loudly at his mistake, that is, at having called him Vaska to a stranger. Vaska bowed to Anna once again, but said nothing to her. He turned to Sappho. "You've lost the bet. We came first. Pay up," he said, smiling. Sappho laughed still more gaily. "But not now," she said. "Never mind, I'll get it later." All right, yes," she said, suddenly turning to the hostess. "A fine one I am, I quite forgot. I've brought you a guest. Here he is." The unexpected young guest whom Sappho had brought, and forgotten, was, however, such an important guest that, despite his youth, both ladies rose to meet him. This was Sappho's new admirer. He now hung on her heels, just as Vaska did. Soon Prince Kalushki arrived, and Liza Merkelov with Stremov. Liza Merkelov was a slender brunette with a lazy Levantine type of face and lovely, unfathomable, as everyone said, eyes. The character of her dark costume, Anna noticed it and appreciated it at once, was perfectly suited to her beauty. She was as soft and loose as Sappho was tough and collected. But to Anna's taste, Liza was far more attractive. Betsy had said of her to Anna that she had adopted the tone of an ingenuous child, but when Anna saw her, she felt it was not true. She was indeed an ingenuous, spoiled, but sweet and mild woman. True, her tone was the same as Sappho's. Just as with Sappho, two admirers followed after her as if sewn to her, devouring her with their eyes, one young, and the other an old man. But there was something in her that was higher than her surroundings. There was the brilliance of a diamond of the first water amidst glass. This brilliance shone from her lovely, indeed unfathomable eyes. The weary and at the same time passionate gaze of those dark-ringed eyes was striking in its perfect sincerity. Looking into those eyes, everyone thought he knew her thoroughly, and knowing, could not but love her. When she saw Anna, her face suddenly lit up with a joyful smile. "Ah, how glad I am to see you," she said, going up to her. "Yesterday at the races I was just about to go to you, but you left. I wanted so much to see you precisely yesterday. Wasn't it terrible?" she said, looking at Anna with those eyes that seemed to reveal her entire soul. "Yes, I never expected it would be so upsetting," said Anna, blushing. The company rose just then to go to the garden. "I won't go," said Liza, smiling and sitting down beside Anna. "You won't go either? Who wants to play croquet?" "No, I like it," said Anna. "But how do you manage not to be bored? One looks at you and feels gay. You live, but I'm bored." "Bored? You're the gayest company in Petersburg," said Anna. "Maybe those who aren't in our company are more bored, but for us, for me certainly, it's not gay. It's terribly, terribly boring." Sappho, lighting a cigarette, went to the garden with the two young men. Betsy and Stremov stayed at tea. "Boring," said Betsy. "Sappho says that they had a very gay time with you yesterday." "Ah, it was excruciating," said Liza Merkelov. "We all went to my house after the races, and it was all the same people. All the same. All one and the same thing. We spent the whole evening lolling on the sofa. What's gay about that? No. How do you manage not to be bored?" She again turned to Anna. "One looks at you and sees, here's a woman who can be happy or unhappy, but not bored. Tell me, how do you do it?" "I don't do anything," said Anna, blushing at these importunate questions. "That's the best way," Stremov mixed to the conversation. Stremov was a man of about 50, half gray, still fresh, very ugly, but with an expressive and intelligent face. Liza Merkelov was his wife's niece, and he spent all his free time with her. Meeting Anna Karenina, he, who was Alexei Alexandrovich's enemy in the service, being an intelligent man of the world, tried to be especially amiable to her, his enemy's wife. "Don't do anything," he repeated with a subtle smile. "That's the best way. I've long been telling you," he turned to Liza Merkelov, "that to keep things from being boring, you mustn't think they'll be boring, just as you mustn't be afraid you won't fall asleep if you fear insomnia. And Anna Arkadyevna is telling you the same thing." "I'd be very glad if I had said that, because it's not only intelligent, but also true," Anna said, smiling. "No, tell me, why is it impossible to fall asleep and impossible not to be bored?" "To fall asleep, you must work, and to be gay, you also must work." "But why should I work if nobody needs my work, and I cannot and do not want to pretend on purpose?" "You're incorrigible," said Stremov without looking at her, and again he turned to Anna. As he met Anna rarely, he could say nothing but banalities, but he uttered these banalities about when she was moving back to Petersburg, about how Countess Lydia Ivanovna loved her, with an expression which showed that he wished with all his heart to be agreeable to her and show his respect, and even more. Tushkevich came in, announcing that the whole company was waiting for the croquet players. "No, please don't leave," begged Liza Merkelov. Learning that Anna was leaving, Stremov joined her. "It's too great a contrast," he said, "to go to old Vred after this company. And besides, you'll give her an occasion for a malicious gossip, which here you'll call up only other very good feelings, the opposite of malicious gossip." Anna reflected hesitantly for a moment. The flattering talk of this intelligent man, the naive, childlike sympathy that Liza Merkelov showed for her, and this whole accustomed social situation was so easy, while what awaited her was so difficult, that for a moment she was undecided whether she might not stay, whether she might not put off the painful moment of explanation a little longer. But remembering what awaited her at home alone if she took no decision, remembering that gesture which was terrible for her even in remembrance, when she had clutched her hair with both hands, she said goodbye and left. If you enjoy this format, please leave a like and subscribe and return tomorrow for the next chapter.